Hi, everyone, and this is John Snyder from the Economic Truth Report, and this is the report number 25. So we're done a few already, and we have a returning guest, one of my favorite guests and a very good friend of mine, Charlie Robinson. Charlie Robinson is the author of a few books, The Octopus of Global Control, which is a very important book to read if you want to know who's behind the curtain, playing with the presidents and prime ministers around the world and whoever else is supposedly we think are in control. And then, of course, he has his latest book, The Controlled Demolition of the American Empire, with none other than Jeff Berwick, which is a fantastic book. It talks about, what I 100% starting to believe, and we see it not just in America, Charlie, but just recently in Canada, just a blatant disregard basically for anything to do with finance from our Canadian finance minister, Chrystia Freeland over here. So, yeah, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. And speaking of her, since we're on this topic, so I've done a couple episodes recently of macroaggressions, and and they're starting to become a theme, and it's her. Right. So I was talking about talking about Cecil Rhodes and the Rhodes Scholarship Program. You go through the list of Rhodes scholars and she's on the list. And you go, well, that's just for smart people, right? That's when they send them to Oxford and they give them a free education, like postgraduate education, and it's because they're smart, right? And you're like, yeah, but there's more, right? There's an agenda that they're programming into them. And one of the things that Cecil Rhodes wanted to do, he wanted to do two things. He wanted to unite the English-speaking whites together, right? Canada, America,
white supremacy.
he was like the real white supremacist, not like the imaginary ones that the left is accusing everybody else of being. But like, if they want like a real bad guy, he's their guy. So he desperately wanted to do that. But then, as sort of like a side bonus, he also wanted to get a hold of really smart people and send them off to Oxford through this Rhodes Scholarship Program that would help them indoctrinate them into what his overriding philosophy was, to unite this the white world together, but also destabilize the United States from the inside so that it can be folded back into the British Empire. Now, he's talking about this in the late 1800s, early 1900s, right? When the British Empire was a big deal, right? It's not as big of a deal now. But we in America, you start looking at the people that are Rhodes scholars and you go, well, okay, so your mission is to destroy America from the inside. And you start to get a bunch of these Bill Clinton and Rachel Maddow and a lot of finance ministers and a lot of politicians on this list. But Chrystia Freeland's name is in there too. Mm-hmm. Right. So I've got her on this and I'm going, oh yeah, she's terrible. Then I start doing a different episode on the World Economic Forum Young Global Leaders. And guess who's on that list too? She's there as well. So I'm like, okay, so she's knee deep in this stuff. She is sent to destroy and fold Canada into a world government. So I agree with you fully when you talk about like the just utter lack of respect for the sovereignty of your country. These people are they're literally trying to destroy Canada from the inside. They want it destabilized and weak. And it's a damn shame too. And of course, Trudeau is on the World Economic Forum Young Global Leader list. I don't think he's smart enough to be a Rhodes Scholar, frankly. I think
you know what's funny is I can't find him on the official list though. Either he was scrubbed or what he was. Like, there's a list that was leaked by who was it now? Is the guy that wrote The Princes of the Yen? What's his name now? He's a famous economist. Like, he's the guy that invented QE, but he actually leaked the list of the Young Global Leader Network because he was offered to join it. And on that list, there's no Trudeau, which
I've got a different list that's got him on it.
Yeah, so this list was like leaked out and it was like everywhere. And like the thing is, you cannot go and find the global leaders for tomorrow list. That you can't find. but you can find the last 5 years of young global leaders. So I couldn't find anywhere, unless
Yeah.
it's the only last 5 years of young global leaders.
Yeah.
But from the list that I have, you got everybody except for like Putin is not on there, Trudeau is not on there, but there's 3,600 people that's on there. And I actually have it searchable. I don't know if I told you, but I have it searchable with 3,600 people on there, so you could actually go in and find. But there's more to Chrystia Freeland. Now,
Oh,
Chrystia Freeland, oh yeah, just listen here. Like this is just going to be like an epic conspiracy here. She was
great.
actually, when she was younger, she used to be an outspoken journalist when she was in university, and she spoke out against the Bilderberg group, by the way, and talk.
Really?
Yeah, she was actually speaking about it and how it was a club of basically just trying to conspire to do certain things against the population. She actually wrote this back in the day. I should probably find that article and put it up for people. But so she was, against this whole thing, and what happened is, I think it turned when she went. She's has a Ukrainian background, and she actually went to Ukraine as a exchange student. But then what happened there is that she worked for intelligence, spying on the Russians back in the days, so spying on the KGB and so on, like
Mhm.
as a student in Ukraine. So very interesting story there. But to
Wow.
bring it home at the other end, just a recent Bilderberg meeting. Our friend Luke Rudowski was over
Yep.
there, covering that among the. It wasn't very many that was there this year because it was like very impromptu and hidden. Well, guess who was on the list and guess who met there? One of the few from Canada, Chrystia Freeland,
Hmm.
the lady that was against, these scumbags conspiring
Wow. They
against us.
brought her, they got to her. They got a picture of her with a goat, didn't they?
Yeah, so something must have happened over there, and yeah, it's crazy. But again, like take another person that's high up right now that's always been in the news. Well, it's Jens Stoltenberg, right?
Yeah.
So I'm from Norway. I know a little bit about the Stoltenberg family, and I did some research on the Stoltenberg family and his brother. No, his brother, sorry, his dad. His name was Torvald Stoltenberg. Well, guess what? Torvald Stoltenberg was the former finance minister of the Labour Party, which also his son was the prime minister of. Well, guess what else he was up to, Torvald Stoltenberg? Well, he was
I'm
sitting as a steering committee member at the Trilateral Commission with Henry
oh
Kissinger. So
yeah.
again,
That's not
and
good.
no, and the thing is like, so okay, so the 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 crazy thing here from Norway that creates this into a wild conspiracy. I don't know, like I find these crazy connections is in Norway. So in the 22nd of July attack where that Anders Behring Breivik shot up all those kids, calling them
Yeah, yeah.
Marxists at the Labour Party youth camp in Norway on an island. Well, what's interesting is, well, who was the prime minister during that time? It was Jens Stoltenberg at the time
Mm.
in Norway. Not only that, but there was an exercise. Well, haven't we heard this before? It was an exercise of the exact same scenario about an hour before it happened. Um, I don't know,
And then
like,
it
yeah,
I, and then I go back to, the first time you and I met, 2019, in Acapulco. And Ole Damagard was there. And I remember having
yeah.
having drinks in the bar with Ole till like 2:45 in the morning, talking about Gladio, talking about false flags, talking about all these things. And he said, "Listen, I think they're running him out of NATO bases."
Hey, that and like Norway is a big NATO country, of course. Like I actually had a NATO secret clearance. I don't know if you knew that, but
Oh,
I was up in the Russian-Norwegian border, so like we're forced to do
oh,
service in Norway, right? And so I was up there, and then I actually ended up after the recruit of 3 months, I ended up going to the what do you call it now? Like communication brigade, basically. But what did the
right.
communication brigade do? We also did intelligence. We helped
I
with
would imagine.
intelligence. So we basically gathered intelligence from all the border stations. Like they changed it now. It used to be five, now there's two. But we used to get the information in. I used to have to know like the differences between certain tanks, Russian tanks, and certain Russian airplanes, just so I could then make a report and then I sent it over to the Norwegian headquarters. But guess what? Sometimes we had a request that came in just and be like, hey, we got something going on there. Is this a radar dome that the Russians are building? What are they doing here over? And this was on the Kola Peninsula up north there. And so what happened is that I was like, well, I would like to see what's going on here. So I sent a request to the Norwegian headquarters. Well, guess what? I get a detailed satellite photo with, you could see the gravel on the ground. I'm not even
Wow.
kidding. And this was back in 2007, right? So the optics on these, and it was clearly an American spy satellite. So that was the first kind of thing. I wasn't awake at the time, but that's kind of the first kind of thing that I
Right.
saw the involvement of the Americans in Norwegian military kind of thing. So
Oh, we're in everything.
yeah, and the thing was like the reason why I had NATO secret was because I handled some documents that was all the positions of all the naval fleet of NATO, and I copied it out onto a document. It was NATO secret, so I literally had to put it into a briefcase with a like I don't know if you ever seen the people with like what do you call handcuff, attached
Yeah.
to a briefcase. That was me. So I did what, and this is the what blows your mind. Like I don't know, like I feel like people could be like, John, are you involved in these crazy people? Being involved with them. But the crazy thing is, so I took this and then I delivered it to the border commissioner on the Norwegian side. There was two commissioners, it's one Russian and one Norwegian, that talked to each other if there was any border disputes or anything happened there.
Mm-hmm.
And the border commissioner at the time was Frode Berg, his name was. Well, you know what? Like when I was with Josh and doing World Alternative Media, suddenly Frode Berg was caught in Russia with Russian naval documents. And he
Oh
was
shit.
caught and put in jail in Russia for spying. The same guy that I handled Norwegian naval documents
Oh
was caught in
no.
Russia with Russian naval documents. Like a double agent, maybe. Like that's just blows my mind that I actually like
Man,
I knew this guy.
that's
It's ridiculous. But so he got actually back, but he can't talk about it. Like he's pissed off at the Norwegian government because they're not letting him say what actually happened. And so yeah, just crazy stories that I bumped into, with especially that one. It's like I knew the guy like at the time.
there's
But
so much going on that we
but
don't
being
we don't know about.
yeah, but being able to see these guys, hiding and doing their thing, like this is the whole like stupidity of Norwegian military. So what happened at the base is I delivered a daily report. It was like NATO confidential. NATO secret was only for the leader of the base and
Mhm.
us that worked there. And so I did a thing where like a daily brief to all the stripes and stars, like the majors, colonels, and so on, right? And when I delivered my brief one day, there was a Russian rocket launch that had gone bad. Like it looked like a crazy, like almost like a wormhole had opened in the air or something
Right.
thing. And the funny thing is, like this was actually on Norwegian news. If I had talked about it and put it on the brief for everybody at the base, I would have been put in jail basically
Right.
for it. So, but what happened is like I just picked a picture from the Norwegian newspaper, and it was funny. They lost their shit on me. It's like, well, you do this, like you're gonna end up in jail. It's like, well, it's from the front page of the Norwegian newspaper, so it's pretty ungraded.
Yeah.
But that's the craziness of the military itself, right? With all the secrecy and stuff. Like now we're listening to the government here in Canada. It's like, oh, this is secret. Whatever we did during locking down all the and beating the crap out of all these truckers. A lot of that is secret. We can't tell you this, can't tell you that. Like government needs to stop one thing. And let me hear what you have to think about this, Charlie. Is what is all with all these secrets that governments have, like that the peasants can't know? Is it just because they think we're stupid and they want to rule us, or is it because it's actually secret, Charlie?
Well, they hate our guts. That's for sure. They just think that this whole governing thing would go so much smoother if it wasn't for all these goddamn people. So they hate us, right? And then up up above the government are these organizations that have a overriding theme of world government, two concepts, world government and depopulation. So those are sort of their bosses, the government's bosses, are these really bad people that would love for the earth to be depopulated so that they could wrap it all up into a government that they control
Yeah,
fully.
the Malthusians, I guess you could call them.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And not like I'm speculating about this. Like they write about it.
Oh yeah.
They write books about it. They talk about what they want and what, and so it's only secretive to the extent that people, just don't go looking for the information, but it's out there. I mean, it's not hidden. So like they've got a lot of reason to keep secrets because their intentions are very dark. And they bring in a lot of low-level dum-dums, like people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or someone
Or
like her,
Trudeau.
right?
Yeah.
Or Trudeau, right? They bring in these people that are polarizing and attractive, and you can focus on your anger or your love or whatever, your energy into these people, but these people are totally and utterly disposable. I mean, just only serving a purpose and can be discarded. There's no loyalty to these people at all. They think that there's loyalty to them, but they'll find out what really is going on is that they're at the bottom of this. They're just one notch above us, the peons, right? And so they've got a lot of things that they don't want the general public to know about because we would rightly want them strung up. And from time to time, people find out about it, and from time to time, politicians get strung up, and so that's we're getting to a point right now where the media and the government, like the government in America, is so against the people that it's bordering on like parody. It's like comical how
Yeah.
much they hate us, right? Like they will in one segment talk about how the president is in Ukraine meeting with Zelensky and giving him billions and billions of dollars, and then have the audacity to not mention the train derailment in
Yeah, in Ohio.
Wisconsin, right?
Yeah.
And that's literally poisoning an entire region of America. They'll pretend
Yeah.
like that doesn't happen. And then they'll talk about how stunning and brave it is to give all of our money away. And people are just kind of like looking at each other like, holy shit, is this for real?
Yeah.
Because it feels like a parody. It's so preposterous. And so it's making me think that they want us to know how little respect they have for us because they want us to rise up so that they can stomp us down in the form of like central bank digital currencies and social credit scores and things like that. It feels like they are baiting us into rising up so that
Yeah.
they would have the justification, the problem reaction solution thing that we talk about. So they would have the our reaction would be, let's get these guys. And then the solution would be what they want to impose all along, which is internet ID, 15-minute cities. You'll eat the bugs. You'll drive an electric car that we can shut off. You'll use a CBDC. That's the only solution for dealing with these insurrections and riots that we're having, right? So doesn't it feel kind of like you, if you take a step back, you go, oh, I see what they're setting us up for something. There's no possible way they could be making all of us fight with each other. We're all fired up and fighting, and up is down and down is up, and the media is just constantly lying to you, and the people are like, oh my God, the media hates us, the government hates us, the banking system's a mess. It's like everybody's on edge, and it feels like it's intentional. Like they're just going to throw a match at the last second and just boom, we all go just bananas, and then they stomp down.
I think that's definitely where we're going because I just recently heard what's his name, Stephen Van Matre. He's a macro specialist, and he was talking about how now the bankers are kind of hinting a little bit And we're talking about the Jamie Dimons, and I forgot the
Mhm.
Goldman Sachs guy. What's his name is there? But they are kind of hinting now at control measures to stop bank runs. Uh,
Oh, gee, I
and
wonder
what could
why.
that be? Could that be like a little flick a little switch and suddenly you can't move anything out of your little app over to another bank?
I
'Cause-
I
yeah,
stood on the stage at Anarchapulco this year, just a month and a half ago, and said, if you guys hear one thing that I say, it is get your money out of the banks and be paranoid because they are going to shut them down and they are going to take your money because it's legally their money in the bank account.
yeah,
You're
you
an
lent it to
unsecured
them.
creditor.
Yeah,
You know, you're not in first position on your money. You think you are, but you're not.
yeah,
So legally they can do it. And it's getting to a point where like not only legally, but they'll be provided the cover of the government to do it as well. Then the media will normalize it. And next thing you know, like we've always had bank runs. We've always had unstable banks. And it's like if I feel like I'm just like waving my arms like a lunatic, going, get your money out of the banks, get your money out of the banks. Like, oh my God, get it anywhere else but in these goddamn banks. And Berwick and I said that in controlled demolition. Like,
yeah.
keep your eye on Deutsche Bank,
Oh
like
yeah, it's been a bank
in their
forever.
derivative bets, because
Yeah.
their derivative bets are, it's like a fuse that's ready to just blow. And when that one goes, you know what's going to happen. It's going to take all these other ones down with it.
Yeah, and the funny thing is like Deutsche Bank, along with Credit Suisse, it's on a certain list. And guess what list that is? It's the Financial Stability Board's list called the Globally Systemically Important Banks, the GSIB list. And both Credit Suisse and Deutsche Bank is on that one as well, along with, of course, the number one bank right now is JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, three Canadian banks, RBC, TD, and BMO, and then some Asian banks around the European banks like Societe Generale, Deutsche Bank, and a few others are on there. But this is a list of like these are the banks that are going to be there, and
Right.
this is what I believe. So a lot of people talk about the CBDCs, being just a government control thing with a central bank running it. But I think they've lobbied so well. Actually, me and Tim Petrot was covering this, and it's something called the Dollar Foundation. No, Digital Dollar Foundation, and it's a consortium. It's an NGO. Well, that rings a bell, right? An NGO that should bring an alarm
Ding,
bell
ding,
right
ding, ding,
away.
ding. Red flags.
Yeah, and it's actually a consortium of banks that are trying to lobby for them being a part of the system and not being, completely disregarded when the Fed just runs their own digital currency and say like, screw you, banks. Everybody's gonna have a bank account at the Federal Reserve, and we're gonna have no banks. So that's the lobby. They're the Digital Dollar Foundation, and they're trying to lobby to basically insert themselves. Because what we got to remember, even if the Fed this is the United States only. There's not any other places that it controls like that. But in the United States, it's the banks that own shares in the Federal Reserve, so they're the shareholders. So it doesn't matter even if they get like withdrawn out of it. Maybe it's just a play for us to be like, oh, like the banks wants to be in there, but they're against the government. But then, oh, wait now, the Federal Reserve is owned by the banks. So I feel like it's just again your play, right? That just got to play each other against each other and really like just poke at each other until you can just throw a match in there, as you said, and then like you get the blow. What we got to remember is this is pretty scary stuff. Like the French Revolution was very interesting. It was, of course, caused by a economic meltdown and the Mississippi bubble that entailed everybody lost their money in the stock market. Everybody had margin debt, by the way, and everybody was instead of Lambos, they had horse and carriages. That was the Lambos of the day.
Yeah.
But what was interesting there is that everybody's losing their money. The currency went worthless. But what happened is that they voted in a guy called Robespierre, and what Robespierre did was the biggest bloodbath in history of French in French history. He basically guillotined anybody that they hated. So they took all the former elites and they beheaded them. But then they started beheading everybody after that disagreed with them. And of course,
That's what
after
always
that,
happens.
yeah, and after that guy, you got Napoleon, which is a tyrant and a dictator. So it's never good. good solution. If you try to warn people, it's like, well, guess the Weimar Republic hyperinflation is the reason why Hitler got into power because they were demolished, the pensions was destroyed, and everything. People looking for a savior, and of course, because you had a democracy, you got voted in a total tyrant that used the people's want for a solution to then gain power and total control. And that's what you're seeing kind of now, where we're starting to get desperate. We're looking for those, like, our national governments are totally screwed up. Like, what do we do here? Well, maybe we should look for a global government that would do things better. I don't
They
know.
would love that. They would love that and they would love for the World Health Organization to run it through a medical dictatorship. It'd just be a whole lot easier.
Yeah,
You know what I
they,
mean?
they got it already, like the UN. You got the UN, and then actually in my book, Canada, the greatest economy in the world, question mark. I have a chapter on the UN, and I go through all of the UN agencies. And they literally have every single agency that you need to run a government. They have in there. They have their IMF. That's their Federal Reserve. So they got that put in place. But what we got to remember is, I don't think they will. When they're going to do the reset, they're going to do a central bank digital currency through the IMF, but that's only going to be used between central banks. And we are never going to touch that as peasants. We're going to have dirty, devalued central bank digital currencies. Like, we're still going to have the US dollar, the Canadian dollar, but it's going to be the CBDC. So I think what we're heading towards here, like what we're seeing, the first kind of, and we've been warning about this for a long time, Charlie, is we've seen the constant attack on liberties. Look at what Canada did, for example, during the trucker protest, is they attacked, they froze bank accounts on people that disagreed with the government solution. And not only that, there's remnants of it still in place that they kept in place, which suddenly changed. It used to be $10,000 that you could take out of a crypto exchange or out of a crypto ATM. Now it's $999. Or else you're going to have to do a KYC, know your client, where you have to show your ID and everything. So it's trickling in, this totalitarianism. And I don't know if you paid attention to this. There's a proposed bill, Bill 686 in the United States. I don't know how much you looked into that,
The
Charlie.
Restrict Act.
Yeah, the Restrict Act, exactly. And what I've seen is that somebody quoted yesterday that there is a proposed $250,000 fine if you get caught with a VPN accessing banned applications or banned sites. And Odyssey or BitChute or any other website or app, well, maybe to just add that to the list, and then they could just fine you, and you lose all your money, and then
It's
off to the
insane.
gulag.
It's utter insanity. They called it a Digital Patriot Act.
Yeah, and here in Canada, we got Bill C13, I think, where they basically are now going to restrict people. So, for example, for me, if I was on YouTube, I need Canadian content, and they tried to push it almost into creating a license to become a journalist and be able to podcast as well. Like, now that is several I think France has something like that already. And well, let's talk about France and what's going on there with our little Rothschild, young global leader, Klaus, Trudeau buddy of Macron over there. They
Yeah.
just proposed a little race in the pensions over there. Let's talk about that, Charlie, and what your thoughts are on that.
Did you see the interview he was giving where he took his watch off midway through because he realized he was asking the people to take a cut in their living standard while wearing an $80,000 watch?
No, I
So
did not. Of
he's
course.
got it on. He's sitting at the table. You can see it. He's got it on. He starts asking for the thing. You see him put his arms underneath the table and start fidgeting around. And next time he comes back up, it's gone.
Oh, this guy's a moron. Well, he's like, again, like, just, yeah.
Again, it's in your face.
Yeah.
It's designed to be infuriating.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking, because I'm saying to myself, these people can't be this incompetent. This has to be a show, right?
Yeah, I think that it's literally they want to just make you so pissed off because sometimes I get a little bit pissy about the
Y-
stupidity that's going on.
y-
They just want you to
It's
go over the hill, like and do something. And then they
right.
could be like, "Oh, we gotta clamp on everybody." Like look at what they were already. They put like was it libertarians and anarcho-capitalists like on the FBI, warning list, right? Like
Oh, did they?
I
No,
think it was
that sounds about right.
yeah, I think anarcho-capitalists are on that warning list of extremist,
The
possible
the F
extremists.
the irony, because the FBI is the largest domestic terrorist organization operating inside America, and everybody with a brain knows that. Like
Yeah,
everybody that's ever even taken 15 minutes to take a look at the FBI's history
mhm.
knows that they're just state sanctioned terror.
Yeah, and I think we basically have the mirror image of that up here in Canada with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the RCMP.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
it,
Do you have that
yeah,
same?
yeah, because who is it? Dan Dix, a good friend of ours. He's been covering a lot of potential false flags and things that have been going on. And actually, there's a couple. I think it's from Vancouver, younger kids. Like they were actually groomed and tricked into trying to plot a terrorist attack with the money and everything from the RCMP. Look at the whole thing that's been
Oh,
going on the. I don't know if you paid attention to this thing that Trudeau is trying to push this gun legislation with it was an event in Nova Scotia where a guy basically had a replica car of an RCMP car. I think he had two even in his garage. And then he had like a trough of guns, available, and he shot and went around and just killed people, 22 people. And now the report came out yesterday, 30,000 page report, well spent, government taxpayers' money there. And then like now they want to redo the whole RCMP. They want to redo this. They're looking at more gun. Like they banned handguns. I can't own a handgun anymore here, unless I bought it before the ban. And so like you're seeing that push where they're coming after the few freedoms that Canadian have left in the United States is going to be a hell of a lot harder to try to they're trying to push the newest mass killing there, which was basically a radicalized person that went and shot up this Christian school with little kids that he murdered, or yeah, him or her. I don't know what to make out of it. But again, it's these things, and this Nova Scotia guy, like he had a replica. He had all this police equipment that he had. Like, where do you get that from? Like it's not not even the people that are criminals here in Canada have all of that stuff. So where did he get all that from? There was a thing that he apparently had been to a depot that was known for informants to the RCMP, and he might have gotten a payment or something. But of course, that's conspiracy theory, and it would never
but
come
that's
out in open.
but that's how you and I both know that's how it works.
Yeah,
Like you don't sit around waiting for like some authentic event to happen. You could be waiting a while.
yeah,
So whatever they do, they radicalize these. I mean, in America, the FBI radicalizes people that are mentally questionable,
yeah,
mentally
yeah.
ill, maybe like like mentally retarded people. Like I'm not trying to be a jerk, but I'm just saying
No,
like diminished brain capacity people that are really kind of screwed up, and they find the right ones online and they work with them. And that's why every time there's some shooting or some bombing, it's like these people, this person was on the FBI's radar. Yeah, no shit.
yeah,
That
yeah.
they're the ones doing it.
Yeah,
This
there was
is what
several
they
red
do. They
flags
work
here in
through
Canada.
proxies, dumb,
Yeah,
disposable kids that they can just go, well, listen, we got a gun problem. We got a knife problem if you're in the UK, or we've got a migrant problem. I mean, why wait for this stuff to happen organically when you can make it happen tomorrow or next week and then use the rage and use all that stuff? I mean,
yeah,
this is just kind of how it works. So people can say, oh, it's a conspiracy theory. It's like, no, it's conspiracy analysis
yeah,
at this point. I mean, if we want to theorize about Hollow Earth, I'm down for that for sure.
yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? But like when it comes to false flags and things like that, this isn't theory. This is
No,
reality. This is how it gets done. A lot of time, not every time.
No,
but a
no.
lot of times. So it's like when you see one of these shootings and they go and you go and I go, let me guess, there's going to be a manifesto, and then they're like, oh, we have the shooter's manifesto. I was like,
Yeah.
of course you do.
Yeah, well, the Norwegian shooter had that. He had his own
Of
manifesto.
course.
Yeah.
Because we can't allow you to just go, I don't know what was going on inside that crazy person's head who shot up all those kids. No, it's got to be this is exactly what was going on in that person's head.
Yeah.
It's in a manifesto. They were meticulous about their hate,
Yeah.
right?
And you
Wink,
know
wink,
what's
written by the FBI. So like so it's like, what's the narrative? What's the reasoning behind this? What do we use? Just okay, grab the manifesto. San Bernardino shooting, same thing.
yeah.
It's always a manifesto, you know. So like,
Well, I guess there, that's conspiracy theory. That there's probably like online you have like this is the layout for being a mass shooter. So you just basically copy paste down the whole manuscript, and then you could just become a mass shooter. It has nothing to do with anybody, like making sure that they have all this stuff. So, people get really enraged. No, no, it's all out there, Charlie. Come on. Like they just download, like every mass shooter has downloaded the same script that, is available online, and then just become one. No, just magically.
yeah, it's with all that money, you'd think they'd come up with better script writers, right? You know what I
Well,
mean? But they run the same plays kind of over and over and over again, and they
yeah,
get very easy to recognize. And one of them is just like, you know, like like there's a shooting and the gunman uses a particular thing, extended capacity magazine or bump stock or
yeah,
whatever, and then make a big deal about that thing and then vote on it the following week to ban that thing. And when you see that happen over and over
yeah,
and over and
every
over,
time.
it's like, sorry, maybe I'm just good at pattern recognition, right?
Well,
I just kind of see these things over and over because I'm watching for them, and I
yeah,
I spot them and I go, well, that just seems awfully coincidental. And then you find out that the FBI is involved in all of them, and you're like, see, this is
yeah.
what I'm talking about. These people are the worst, and they're making it happen. And they're like, we gotta defend against those terrorists in Afghanistan and in Iraq and in Russia and all these things. It's like, no, no, no. We have to defend against the terrorists inside the United States, and it's the FBI. And watch how they treat people. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, no, it's pretty insane. Like when they actually created that list that I saw, I was just blown away by that list. And I must say that I don't even know how they can come up with a list like that. Like anarcho-capitalist, really. Like you're just afraid that you'll lose control over a government, and
Of
you will have
course.
like peaceful people running around, like having a free market with each other. Oh, that'd be terrible,
Oh no.
idea. So, but it runs against them. And one other interesting thing, I don't know if you ever had, hung with any of these crazy people out there, but recently on LinkedIn, I seem to like bumped into like the last 2 years, I seem to have bumped into all these weird elites on there that are from around the world. Like I recently was saying something about NATO, trying to like create a world war or whatever. And then I had the Crown Prince of Dubai, liking my comment. And
Really?
yeah, I just tried to mingle with these people just to see what they're all about. Like I remember the first time I really got to see like real like type of elites. Of course, we have a king and queen in Norway. Like when I was in the military, I had to salute the king and queen every time you went to eat in the cafeteria, or else you wouldn't be able to eat if you didn't salute the king and queen. Uh,
Right.
but but to that extent, one time I went with my dad, and we went to a conference down in Nice, France, and it's the French Riviera, so we got
Mhm.
at least I didn't see too much there, but we decided to take a little trip down to a little unknown country that's called Monaco. Well, guess in Monaco, it's like $50 million to live
Oh,
there.
I've been there. Yeah, I've been
Yeah.
there.
So you know
Yeah.
exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
The
It's
yachts everywhere.
crazy rich.
Yeah, and you got the yachts everywhere, and then like you got the huge yachts. So you go down there, like, oh wow, these are huge yachts, and then you just look out to the bay there, and there's a freaking cruise ship. No, no, it's not a cruise ship. It's Prince of Monaco's yacht. right? And
Yeah.
then, I connected with a few people there, and I managed to connect with an opera singer at the Monte Carlo casino there. Not at
Oh
the
yeah.
time when I was down there, but this is like through LinkedIn. And her name is something Noble, and Noble is, of course, a well-known name in the elite circles. But I think her name was Grace Noble or something like that. But it was interesting. She was going over to Canada for a few, like for a year or so to do some things, and what ended up happening is like, oh, I'm an event planner, so I would love to, put on events. If you know anybody in Canada, like this is my portfolio. And so she sent me this portfolio of an event in Monaco and an event in Dubai that she's done. Well, and guess what this was? Like it blew my mind. Like this was called the Princes and Princesses Ball, and it was every prince and princess in the world, meeting at this ball, having like opera singers, and it's like
Oh,
blown, like they
oh,
were eating with gold plates, and like it was the whole
holy
shebang.
whoa.
Yeah, so that's a whole nother level of rich, and we're talking about the
Yeah.
controllers, right? And that there we go. Like you got to remember, companies like Royal Dutch Shell is owned by Queen Beatrix and her family,
Oh yeah. She's
and so
way
on.
connected. That's
Yeah.
a dangerous family.
Oh, and she is like very connected. She's, been at Bill. I don't think it was her, but I think it was her cousin or something. I forgot.
Who started it.
Yeah,
Prince, yeah, Prince
Bernard,
Bernard.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So but it's all related, right? Like the Norwegian royal family is related to the Danish that has also attachment to some German and Spanish
The
royal
Dutch royal
family.
families
Yeah.
involved and all that. Yeah. It's a little
One.
intertwining
Yeah, and
circle.
here in Canada, we have the royal family. Like it's called Crown Land. If you're out and about
Hmm.
like far enough, like the Crown Land. Well, guess who owns it? It's the king and queen. Same in Australia. They own most of the land there. The royal families. And actually talking about that, I had pulled up an article here that you get a crack out of. Of course, it's from France 24, the French newspaper here. But let's what I'm gonna do, Charlie, is I'm gonna share it with you. But it's King Charles is opening his mouth about something here,
Oh
and
God.
and what King Charles is saying, he says, warns of Europe's security is under threat in landmark German speech. So he goes to Germany, and he talks about how we're in big trouble here because what we got to do is we got to take care of this Russian empire. That's in the way of everything here, and so I think that's the theme. But the thing though is again, it's that whole Putin thing is that Putin knows all the elites, and then when you look at young global leaders, like the head of the Russian central bank is a young global leader, and all these people, the young global lead, like they're all connected into this interconnected network of people below the elites that are used as their henchmen to do their dirty jobs, go around and divide people, and create misery and anger around the world. So
They're doing a great job of it.
yeah, they're
They
doing a very
really are
good job.
fantastic at their job. I just recorded an episode that was all about these world leaders, so it's like fresh on my mind. Yeah, it's really something, you know. Like as a writer, I there's part of me that just is like I just marvel at like wow, it is just right out in the open, you
Yeah, and
know. Like
and the
they're not
thing
even
is,
concerned that you know what they're doing at this
no,
point.
because they think you're dumb. Most of
They
us.
hate your guts
Yeah.
and they think you're dumb and they don't think that you can do anything about it. And you know what? They might be right. They might be right. They might be totally right because there's so many people out there that are just dumbed down and are checked out at life
Oh
and they
yeah.
will just do whatever they're told. And there's so many of those people that I just, I try to be optimistic and everything, but it's like, boy, there's a huge drag on society. There's just a lot of dummies that can't figure it out. Like it's right in front of your face what's going on, and you show them, and they're like, yeah, but Trump, and you're like,
Yeah.
it's so much big, it's so much bigger than that. Like
Oh yeah, and people
it's
don't
a
understand
show,
that. Guess
it's a
guess
big
who
show,
guess who got everybody vaccinated in the United States? It was
right?
Mr. Trump. So
Yes, 100%. He's still owning that. He's still connected to that.
yeah, and it's it's
So
it's he's controlled. Like he's controlled by debt. He has so much debt, and guess which bank he has the most debt with? Is Deutsche Bank. Talking about that as
Right.
well. It's it's hilarious how these guys are connected, but it's one of the worst villains, and I'm not even talking about Klaus Schwab, which is another level. Like there should be a James Bond movie about this, but it would be pretty boring. There's not so much shooting and stuff right into open action. They just murder people here and there, of course, that they don't like.
Yeah.
But it's like Matt Taibbi just released the Twitter files, and then suddenly the same day as they have a hearing, IRS just randomly comes to his door the same day.
That,
It's a little
that's
threat,
the thing. That's kind of my point.
Yeah.
Is that the mask is off? They don't care if you know anymore that they're like a gangster government.
No, and I think
They just
that's
that it makes me feel like either they think these people are so stupid it doesn't even matter if we lie to them anymore, or if they want us to recognize this and be angry and go, the government actively hates us, we've got to do something. You know what I mean? Because
I
it's
think
so egregious and
yeah,
so out in the open, the blatant criminality of like the
yeah.
Biden family,
Well,
and
look
like
at
everybody's supposed to pretend like it's not there. It's so weird.
yeah, and then you got like we gotta remember like before was it von der Leyen or whatever? What's her name? The head of the EU there. Before her was a guy called Claude. No, was it Jean-Claude Juncker? Well, and guess which family he's
The
connected with?
alcoholic who kept blacking out in places, right?
Yeah, and his family owned the Juncker, created the Juncker bombers, and were huge industrialists during the
Wonderful.
Nazi era, right? So,
Perfect. I'm why am I not surprised?
and who's always in control of the parliament there? Who's always the head? It's a German. So you're looking at the like just the remnant of the Fourth Reich. Like a lot of people like
It's
in
the
Europe like to call it that, by the way.
well, listen, the United Nations and World Economic Forum are most definitely the Fourth Reich.
Yeah, yeah. It's
I
what else
mean,
are you gonna
it
call it
is
at this point, right? It's
it's not they're not goose stepping yet, but the ideology is the same.
yeah, it's right in the open, and as you say, they don't care. But like there's a few moments in history that people get confronted when they don't like it, and a lot of them have been some great fellow friends. Like I love how they confronted a lot of people during World Economic Forum. Now the Rebel News from Canada was pretty good at
Yeah,
getting a few
yeah, yeah,
really big ones. The head of Pfizer there, and you had. Greta Thunberg and a whole bunch of other top elites that they were able to confront. Which
yeah.
is
Those
great.
people hate Rebel News.
Yeah, which is
They
good.
hate it. Yeah, because it's they're right there. Yeah, I like their coverage of it.
Yeah, and it's very much needed. Those problem is though they have a conservative like the head of it used to be part of Sun Media, used to own Sun Media, and which is conservative. So he just promotes the regular conservatives as a solution to everything. And there you got Pierre Poilievre, like very slick guy, that comes in there and says like, "Oh, government spends money, it's inflation." But when you really dig into it, he really doesn't understand a lot about economics and money in general. He's just using talking points to really like play with people and make them voting for him, because who they really dislike is another guy called Maxime Bernier. What's funny with Bernier, he actually went to the World Economic Forum. He went and met people there. I was just in Winnipeg here. He toured around, like he has this People Party of Canada thing that's going on, and he's gotten pretty popular. But he actually went there and he said like, well, like I went there, but I went as a finance minister at the time, and I went there to ask questions, like meet with other colleagues there, blah blah blah. But I asked him a question. Even this guy that's supposed to be like the populist, that is coming in as a savior here, he doesn't understand like how to save the economy. Like all that he's talking about this, we're gonna cut the deficit, but then we're also gonna cut in immigration at the same time. It's like, well, you actually the only reason why the Canadian economy is afloat is because of immigrants. They come in, they're debtors. The system needs debtors, and if they don't have them, they really need more debtors, because the Ponzi scheme needs to have a constant inflow on new debtors to pay off. Because you paid off all the debt now, there'd be still interest owed. So they need to keep that debt from going in, and what we're seeing now with the raising of interest rates and all this stuff, like asset prices come down, like it's just huge financial collapse on our hands. But again, it seems like a very controlled demolition. You got the Financial Stability Board. If you go to, so I went into the top 50 central banks and look at their balance sheets, and okay, so balance sheets is one thing. They hold like stocks even in some countries, like they bailed out everything. But what was the most pronounced thing that I saw on every website was Financial Stability Report. That is totally new. I haven't seen that before. Well, I go and look into it, and they actually report to the Financial Stability Board, about financial stability, in the economy. And so you got all these guys, and so they're really just into, talking about how great they are and what they're going to do. And when you look at all these economists and everything, a lot of them are young global leaders. They're part of the system. They actually got brainwashed a lot of times into the system. And like that whole young global leader, they're all brainwashed. Like they literally got brainwashed as kids, because you get in, was it age 30? But now they have an even earlier program. They have the Global Shapers Hub, which is from 19 to 29. So they take them even at a younger stage, and that was 45,000
minor
people.
leagues.
Yeah, the minor leagues. You got to start early to brainwash these kids. But again, you got these elites that are on top, and they think that they never will, get touched by anybody. There's a few, times where Rebel News and others get in and get to ask questions. I got to show you something funny here that you'll appreciate, and it's a little. I snuck into a little. It was actually an open forum, but I guess they don't think that anybody would be on the mailing list of the G30 group, which is the Bilderberg for Finance. But I had the honor of sneaking in at one point, and so let me just show you this clip, and I want to get your reaction, because this is one of the head criminals, during the 2008 bailout that I kind of put on the spot, and he's just shrugging it off, and he doesn't even want to answer the question, it looks like. But just look at the body language of these guys when they get asked a question about reality here. This will make you have a good laugh here.
Thank you. We have a question from John Sinison. What concerns do you have regarding the de-dollarization? And can the Fed handle a potential U.S. Treasury exodus?
Jeremy, do you want to do that? I would say it's.
No, I mean, just other than, as Tim said, I think at the outset, the fact that the Treasury market is sort of the central fundamental market in the financial world, obviously related to the status of the dollar, adds some urgency to sort of the general thrust of what we're about. But beyond that, I don't know that I'd say much else.
I would like to add to that. I agree with Jeremy that the safer and sounder the U.S. Treasury market is, the more it supports the use of the dollar in international finance, and that's good for the United States, and it's good for global investors. And because of that demand, it lowers the taxpayers' bill to meet U.S. fiscal deficits.
Thank you. We have another.
Yeah.
You just threw a live hand grenade in your meeting.
Yeah,
like, it's not de-dollarizing. Oh, really? Go ask Saudi Arabia. Go ask China.
Yeah.
Go ask Russia. Go ask India. Go ask
Brazil
all these other
now.
countries.
Brazil just made a big deal with China as well, just the other day. But what's interesting about that, though, it seems like Duffy there, like he's just looking straight into the camera, like he's talking to his overlords, and it's like, I will assure you that this is what is right. But these guys are the PhDs. These are the guys that run the world economy, basically, and telling everybody what to do at the Fed. Like they're basically, what do you call the advisors? Like Kissinger are. They're the, the emergent advisors of the world.
Right.
like Geithner, and of course Geithner, he's been involved in scumbag industry with Al Gore and everybody around there, right?
Right.
So
These are the worst people in the world.
yeah,
Yeah, these Tim Geithner should be hanged for his crimes against humanity, for what
yeah,
his financial crimes, right?
yeah.
I think so. I
Well,
think
together with
you know,
what's his friend there at the time, Obama. You know, he remember when Obama ran, you know, like, oh, we will not bail out the banks, and it turned out like right as he got,
they just stole.
yeah,
No, these people are straight up industrial strength criminals, but they work for someone. You know what I mean? So it's like who do they represent? Who's Tim Geithner's group? Well, you know, he's in that Obama era,
yeah,
right?
and he's in the
These guys are
think tank, like he's in the think tank of G30 leaders.
he's
You
at
know,
the
like you got
Aspen
Larry,
Institute.
yeah,
He's
Larry
a
Summers sits there, like the Augustin Carstens sit in the G20 as well. Like all these guys are circling around in all these think tanks, telling
yeah,
everybody what to do.
it's a Venn diagram where with a lot of interlocking Tim Geithners. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of people like him out there that sit on multiple that are part of multiple groups or multiple boards of directors, and
Yeah, and they're being
making these
lobbied.
decisions.
They're literally being lobbied by the government. So like, oh, what should we do? Oh, more government. We're gonna need more government. That's what we're
That's
gonna.
funny. That's exactly what we wanted you to say.
Yeah.
There's more money.
And you know, I just watched Chrystia Freeland's recent interview by one of our state funded, like it's supposed to be private, but it's state funded now. CTV, I think it was CTV News that interviewed her. So they're trying to be a little bit critical, of course. But what was hilarious is like she literally lectured this lady that she's like, well, you know, listen, no, you're totally wrong about this. It's like you need to get educated. Let me tell you what is up here. You know, like she just talks down to you like you're a child. And that is just the whole part of the scheme here is to really like I think really aggravate people. Look at what's happening in Netherlands right now, right? Where the farmers, you know, they got together, but then the farmers, what did they do? They created a political party, and now they're in parliament. So now everything will turn around.
More government.
Yeah.
More
It's
government.
like,
what do we want? We want more government. Okay, let's.
well, it's like the riots in France. You know, what are these moron solutions? They're running around burning down businesses and everything, and then what do they want? More government. Like they literally are getting exactly what they want. And I think at one point, like our national governments will look so moronic and idiotic that be like, well, we just need to get out of this. Well, you know, like how about a global government? You know, like more government.
Sure.
We
How
need a
about
galactic government with us as the leader.
we're gonna have a climate emergency
Yeah.
that will run, and then the solution for that will be a government that takes the climate into consideration, like an ESG woke government.
Yeah.
And then it's over for you. Then you're it's 2030 and you're
What?
in the smart city.
Well, it's like the creator. This is funny. I think you know, but the creator of the whole Agenda 2030, that how it started was a lady called Gro Brundtland. She's a former prime minister from the Labour Party. Guess who's sitting as number 2 at Klaus Schwab's right-hand man, Børge Brende, former finance minister, no foreign minister in Norway, Labour Party of Norway. Like these guys have infiltrated and taken over global positions. Like Roland Brundtland, she was the head of the World Health Organization, for crying out loud. But so she has created like she has created, you know, the whole thing called Our Common Future. She wrote it with a Manitoba-based guy. Well, get this guy. Oh, this will blow your mind again. Like so, Maurice Strong from Manitoba, a little town in Manitoba. He went to worked in the oil field. Well, guess who he bumped into there? David Rockefeller. And he become mentored by David Rockefeller. And that's, you know, if you follow James Corbett, he has a fantastic expose of how, you know, Maurice Strong got, you know, put into a position to create the whole ESG movement. You know, the whole like scam that we see today. And of course, he worked with Roland Brundtland to create what became the base layer for Agenda 21, which was basically, let's just take away all private ownership. That was the whole doctrine, the whole our common future thing. And it was a communist manifesto. And then now, of course, it's turned into Agenda 2030. And now we have the ESG goals, right? The 17. If you see that pin on anybody with those 17, like you see a little round circle with colors
That's the
on.
hammer and sickle. That's that's the new hammer and sickle.
Yeah,
for sure.
And of course, the green movement is just like a watermelon, like I like to call it. And I think others have called it that too. It's like green on the outside, but red on the inside. It's yeah. But it's these movements. It's a pushed by these elites because they're getting fed up with us having too much freedoms because we're getting a little bit rambunctious out there, ruffling the feathers a bit. So they got the internet, and then now they're really struggling to control the internet. So they're really like trying to like scramble and fight, their way to see if they can find a way. Like this is interesting. So during the event 201, which was again a think tank run by Bill Gates and World Economic Forum, they ran this think tank. Like, oh, what if we had a pandemic of a coronavirus? 2 months before it suddenly pops up out of nowhere, right after a banking crisis were starting. Like the whole COVID thing was a cover up, I think, for covering up the banking crisis. That just like they had to bail out J.P. Morgan and everybody. Like if you go to the Federal Reserve, you could actually look at who got bailed out. Well, it was interesting. All the banks that I saw got bailed out during that time was on the GSIB list of the Financial Stability Board. Like every single bank that got bailed out during the repo crisis that started on September 17, 2019, and then went all the way into the financial crisis of meltdown lockdowns, 2020 there in March to May. And then guess what happened on March 26th is we used to have a fractional reserve banking system in the United States. They were one of the few that had that left. Well, now they have a zero reserve policy. So it's like, hey, you bankster, just have whatever reserves you want. Like we don't give a shit anymore. No. And that brings us to let's talk a little bit about this, Charlie, is the interesting thing about, what we see now with the digital bank runs, because this is not like the technical, the old school type of bank run that we're seeing with Silicon Valley Bank and a few others, say like first, like Silvergate Bank, I think it was, and then it was it First Republic Bank, and I think there's one more that I'm missing out here. But let's talk about the difference here, because the banks it seems to implement, and it seems that they want to consolidate into the big banks, because in Europe this is almost happened. There's not a lot of banks left in Europe. It's only in the United States that they have a lot of banks. Here in Canada, we have basically like 10 banks. That's it. And there's credit unions and stuff, but they don't have a lot of banks. And it seems like a consolidation moment. But now we have a digital run, and how they got caught here and fail is that, they have, during COVID, everybody got deposited money into these banks. And what does the bank have to do? They have to buy a treasury to be on the asset side of their balance sheet. The liability is they owe you now money because you put money into the bank. That's the liability. That's the loan. And then they have to have an asset to back it. So they buy like a treasury. But at the time, they bought it at 0% interest. During COVID, Trump and everybody and Biden was pumping in money into the system. Everybody got into I think the deposits like skyrocketed like 4 trillion or something, right? And then the thing was, like, all those deposits had to then be covered by a bond, because debt is money, right? And so what happened is that they were at 0% interest, basically, like those bonds. Well, now that they tried to sell them, they're like worth like 25% of what they were. So basically, when you transfer, let's say $1 million, now they sell that asset, but they can only get like X amount. So they don't have enough to cover, the flight of capital out of, but that's a digital run. And I think you see that, like, what's happening, and you see it now, is like all this money from these small, like regional banks that have done the dirty work of the banksters, doing the lending, because JP Morgan doesn't want to touch that anymore. They're all flooding into JP Morgan. And so you're seeing, like, now they're in panic mode because it's way too much. They don't want these peasants money in their bank accounts. They just want big investment money. So that versus, like if we taught people to just go and take out some cash out of your bank right now, like these banks would fail like this because nobody has cash anymore.
No. No, this is happening because Janet Yellen gives interviews where she says we're going to have to prioritize which banks we save based on their systemic risk.
Or who they know.
Right. Meaning if they're important enough, we're going to support them. If they're not, maybe, you're shit out of luck. Right. So what does that do? Everyone goes, well, then I need to be in the supported bank. But also if you're the bank, now you can do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll always be, if they think that your failure will screw up their grift, they will make sure that you are not allowed to fail. And so it just breeds reckless behavior because it's normalized.
Yeah, and what's the counterparty to chaos? It's Financial Stability Board. And their list
for your safety.
Yeah, it's for your
Isn't that
safety.
what the Nazis said?
Yeah, and the thing is, like these morons, like they basically position themselves as the regulator for the UN. They're basically like they're under the Banco International Settlements, but they actually regulate the Banco International Settlements. It's hilarious. Like the Banco International Settlements funded this agency with $5 million for salaries for Timothy Geithner and others that work at this. But they came out with the bail-in legislation. I don't know. Well, you saw my thing there, but they actually came out with the bail-in legislation that came out of the Financial Stability Board. Like what is literally going on around the world in a few countries now? You will have Credit Suisse will go into a bail-in most likely, and Deutsche Bank and others. Like that was created by these bankster scum. And guess who was the first country to implement it? It was Canada. Not under Trudeau. It was under Stephen Harper that we had here, a conservative. So again, it just comes out to like they're trying to create these crises for us. So they have their, like as you said, it's the problem, reaction, solution. It's they want us to beg for their control,
and the people will, because they can't figure out why the cheese is free on the mousetrap. They just can't figure it out. And so they get caught. And I mean, it's to me, it's you can see the plan. You feel like you can, maybe not, I mean, you can see there's several ways this can go, but it feels like it's designed to get a reaction from us so that the real boot on your head comes down in the form of a digital sort of collapsing of things where you're, like as they're trying to pass the Restrict Act for the Internet Patriot Act, Censorship Act, like that's just brazen. They wanted to do with that thing. Like you, under no circumstances do you MFers pass that act, or we're going to have big problems.
Yeah, but what's
devastating.
Yeah, and you know what? Like this is interesting because it seems like the United States and Canada are doing at the same time together with Western countries. They came out just recently. It's like, oh, we got foreign interference. We got China meddling in our affairs here, so we've got to ban TikTok. Like how convenient, the TikTok app,
right?
Which is actually like not that bad, to be honest. Like it's very addictive. It's manipulating you, but it actually is pretty like. Except for Chinese content, you won't see anti-Chinese content on there, but you'll see a whole bunch of like anti-American, anti-Russian, anti-whatever, right? You'll see that on there. It's hilarious, but they gotta have to find that boogeyman and then use that, and their buddy over there, Xi Jinping, that like the World Economic Forum is like we don't want to have anything to do with the Chinese. Meanwhile, they literally have top people in Chinese Communist Party that sits in the top chair positions. They have the journalists in the CCTV and other news agencies there, South China Morning Post and others. They got, the educational system. They got the professors. They got the people that are educating the educators. They got those, and then they manipulate those to then brainwash kids today, like into total, followers, and they just do whatever they're getting told. Most of them. But it's interesting now. Yeah, go ahead.
I just got John Perkins' new book, his new Confessions of an Economic Hitman, about China's economic hitmen, and how they're using this strategy. And I'm only a little bit into it.
But it's the AIIB. That's the Chinese version.
Right. Financing this Belt and Road. BRI.
Yeah, they're just copying the Americans. Like they just have like, you got to have two sides to war, or else it doesn't look real, right? So it's important that we have the villains now. Like we're setting the stage for the whole reorganization of society into a global government, where we have this big. You got to remember, like the UN came out of World War II. It actually, like, that's how it got created, and NATO as well. The whole NATO alliance, like these whole global organizations.
After you have those big wars and everything's all screwed up, then you say, all right, we're gonna have to step in and simplify things, right? So that's why it feels very uncomfortable, because that like they would benefit from a big old war.
Oh, 100% they would.
It would give them cover to cover the banking collapse that's coming, if not here already. The real estate collapse, the COVID death collapse. Those numbers. I mean, from the thing that we're not allowed to talk about. It would provide, the bigger the war, the more coverage it would, give them. And then knowing that from the ashes of that will rise the next iteration of the United Nations, like it probably, I don't know, let me guess, wrapping up by 2030, wink, wink, and like, and then the new government, the new world order is born, right? That's what that's kind of why I'm a little bit jumpy with how like crazy people are getting inside America. It's like a pressure cooker. It feels like.
Well, it's here too. Like every country. Look what just happened in like all over Western countries. You got Netherlands, France. You got not so much in Spain or down in those countries. They're pretty much done. Like screwing up those. Like with the 2011 banking crisis, they're pretty much done with basically looting all those pensioners. But what is happening is, like, you see the demolition. You see in Norway now. You see like starting to have like two opposing forces again, and I got, like, to be honest with you, I almost got excited at one point. It's like, oh, people are rising up, but then I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah. You you want to like be enthusiastic, like, oh, we're gonna finally figure it all out, but you're like, oh wait, no, it's only gonna be there's still going to be a huge mass of people that are just never going to figure it out.
Yeah, and
that's the part that kind of that's the kind of the frustrating part. But I guess the good news is that they say that you don't need to get the majority to believe or to understand something in order for prevailing attitudes to change. So you actually only need to get a relatively small percentage of the sort of attention of the population in order to get real things changed. So hopefully, this is what I kind of hope, that like, you go through COVID, you see the mistakes that were made with that, like just the obvious criminality going on there, and then the media covering it up, and then you go into some sort of banking collapse where the president goes, everything's fine, nothing's going on, and you know that they're lying to you, and you come out of that like, that feels like where we're headed, to a place where people are just so fed up.
Yeah.
And that
I think the only solution to this is, a lot of people like to move away from countries, I'm going to move to this country, that country, and get away from things. I think that the best thing to do, to be honest, is to, find like-minded people around where you live. And then, like, it's got to be tough times. Like I just don't see how we can get away from it. like it's gonna be dark and then light, if you know what I mean. Like it's I think we're heading for that because people really need to see the dark times to see the good times. But I think the most of other importance is to get out of the grid, with your money, be off any, like, don't be relying on government for anything. Please
No.
don't. And I think if you have those, like you have, garden, your money, or you got a cryptocurrency, something out of the bank. Yeah, I got physical gold and silver as well. Like if you're out of the system with a lot of your wealth, and if you're out of there with, your dependence of getting fed from the system, have your own things, or have access to it, have that community with people that you could connect with, to then be able to, it's like, oh, I need some meat today. Just talk to a local farmer kind of thing. And I know they're coming after all the farmers and all this stuff, but they can't control, like in the United States and Canada, we're pretty vast. That's going to be pretty tough to control us,
No,
and the
overt control is a
Yeah.
losing battle.
But
They have
it's
to-
always like that, right? Like it's
yeah.
that pendulum.
They have to control your mind.
Yeah.
They have to control the narrative. They have to control the flow of information. Because if they do that, that works way better than tanks on every corner. You know
Oh,
what I
yeah.
mean? That's too obvious, and the people start to get really frantic when they see that. So before that they do that, they're just trying to take over people's minds right now. And we're seeing it with the Twitter files. We're seeing
Oh,
it
yeah.
with how
Yeah.
connected the intelligence agencies are to social media. And you know why that is. You know that is for manipulating the emotions of the general public. And it's like, why are you guys doing that? Is it because you're up to no good and you don't want us to recognize that? It's like, of course, yeah. So
Yeah.
it once you start to unpack all of this, you go, oh my God, like we're dealing with a group that is diabolical. Right?
It's the
They'll
biggest
do
crime
anything.
syndicate. Yeah, it's the biggest crime
Right.
syndicate
It's the biggest
the
crime
world.
syndicate in the world. It's just
in history.
it's just different. It's more sophisticated. It's more like business suits instead of like, sweatsuits.
Yeah, the hard boot didn't really come down until like during COVID. Like that's when we saw some hard boots coming down.
Oh yeah.
That was
Yeah,
the first time.
that was a dress rehearsal for
Yeah, a little warning.
for how far can we push?
Yeah.
How much can we like break them? You get into all of the, those legendary interviews with your friend G. Edward Griffin and Yuri Bezmenov, right? And you
Yeah.
start to watch those videos now. They take on such a special and different meaning.
They're almost prophetic, right? But
They are totally prophetic.
happened.
Exactly.
But it happened before in other times throughout history.
Yeah. And you go, well, this guy couldn't be guessing, he couldn't have this level of accuracy. And you start to listen and you go, oh, this is exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
It's this intentional subversion, this cultural subversion.
They need
And
to
it
destroy
requires
to
a lot of
rebuild.
effort. And he explained how it worked. And then you take that and you overlay it on COVID and you go, oh, they line up like perfectly. Like they just broke everybody's brains and they knew they could. That's what's so crazy about it.
Oh, and believe me, like I seen this, like Manitoba is crazy because they got like 40-50% here of the workforce is government employees. And you see still in governments, like they still have vax mandates some places. They still have, when you like all the buses here, everybody's got to wear a mask on the bus.
Wow.
Actually, when I'm at the store, I see like probably 10-15% still wearing masks.
Wow.
Like
that's what he was talking about. Bezmenov was saying that, like after they go through this period of psychological trauma, that he says, I can shower them with good information. It won't change their mind until the boot. He said, until the boot comes down on their head, and then they will understand that they've been deceived, but not until then. And you're just like, oh my God, you're so right. Like it's just a coach calling plays. He's got 4 plays. I think there was 4 levels to this. So and you just went right down the list and you go, oh, they just ran a perfect operation on the general public.
It was a gigantic psyop. Like it was
Yeah.
very well. I must say I was pretty impressed with how well it was executed. Like we've talked about this stuff and we were like, oh yeah, like sometimes you doubt yourself these conspiracies, and
Yeah.
then you'll be like, oh shit, like
No,
they just did
you
it
know,
way
you're
bigger and
like,
harder than I thought.
when you're early, you sound crazy.
Yeah, and then you start doubting yourself a bit. I was like,
Yeah.
sounds a
Yeah.
little nuts, but
Yeah.
and then you just be like, oh shit. Get
And
that
then it
moment
becomes
real.
self-evident, right?
Yeah.
At some point, it's like, well, of course, this is how it was going. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, you and I, we left in Acapulco February 2020, right? And we just went home to like normalcy, kind of like the people that were like the month before 9/11,
Yeah, it's
like
like
just going
the
about
month
their
before a
lives.
storm or anything, right? Like it's
Yeah. And
just
then
a
it's like,
piece.
like then that hit and everything changed. And it's like they took a large segment of the population and scared the shit out of them to the point where they broke their brains. And
Mhm.
now everything terrifies them and they are like fervent defenders of government tyranny.
Oh yeah.
Too. On top of
Yeah.
that, it's this weird codependence with the government that they've got,
Yeah.
like a site, like trauma bonding between,
Yeah,
like
and
they've been
it's
victimized and daddy government is there trying to like save them with
Stockholm
Fauci. And
syndrome.
they've created this psychological dependency on the state. And
Yeah.
fuck, man, we speak at anarchist conventions. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like we hate the state, and
Yeah.
we see this and we go like, it's so obvious. Why can't you see this? And then you realize what Yuri Bezmenov said. He just said that some people that you just break their brains. And I've been traveling a lot in the last couple of months to Mexico a couple of times and Florida and I'm still seeing masks. I
Yeah.
like an uncomfortable number of them, and it's like those people will wear masks until
Until then,
like maybe
tell them to
maybe
yeah.
forever.
Yeah.
Maybe for the rest of just to be on the safe side.
And that's the extremists. That's the like we talking about us needing just we don't need a majority. We just need a few individuals. Well, that's what they're thinking too. It's like you just need like that 5 or 10% of the population being extremely about something, and
Yeah.
then you can control things.
For sure. They get a disproportionate amount of attention based on the media too. So
Yeah. But yeah, it goes back to that, these Malthusian elitists, and the funny, like we got to remember, how did kings and queens even come to be? It's like there was this one guy saying like, oh, wait, we're into religion. And so we have these religious leaders, but what if I say that I'm appointed by God?
it's a
And
it's a
that's how it
great
started.
scam if you can pull
Yeah.
it off.
Yeah, and it worked, It worked
Sure.
at this one guy.
But again, I think it goes back to like understanding psychological manipulation.
Yeah.
And like, and there is some truth to this. Like you can just kind of stand up there, and if you just say you're in charge,
Yeah.
there's a certain amount of people that'll be like, fine, let's go. And they know that.
Yeah.
It's a trip. I wish that they were, I wish that those people were better people, because the world would be a much better place. But unfortunately, there's something about just willing yourself into positions of power that just, I think, gives you no respect for the people, because you're like, I can't believe you are calling me the king. That's so stupid. You're so dumb. Like, how could I respect you? You think I'm the king? Like,
yeah.
In its face, it's disrespectful.
Yeah, and you get the rise of, like, I think it comes down to the basic psychological making of humans. Like we got these three, I call it three main drivers of human psychology. It's greed, fear, and love. Those three are the biggest drivers of any of us. Like like anybody could look at themselves, like I have so much love for my wife. But you gotta remember, like if you're a greedy person, you could have love still, but you could have love for, your family, your 3,600 young global leaders. You could have love for them,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's again like, but it's that greed when you drag in that greed into and then have the other, like greed is the highest. That's when it becomes very dangerous in my view,
Yeah.
and that's why
Yeah.
you get these psychopaths running things.
And they go where the hunting is good. They
Yeah.
go to positions of power.
Oh yeah.
That's why I was talking about this in my octopus book. It's not that being a Boy Scout troop leader makes you a pedophile. It's
No.
that pedophiles go to positions of power
Mhm.
where they have access to the things that they want. So of course they're going to be Boy Scout troop leaders.
Yeah.
That's where the fishing is good, so to speak. So or priests.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like if you're a pedophile, you go where you are protected and where you have cover and where you have access.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these psychopaths find themselves in positions of power inside the government because it just gives them what they want, which is control over other people. And it's something that I think the average person, or like the vast majority, the nice people out there, just don't even really consider that
No,
when they're
because
looking at
yeah.
at how the world works. They're like, oh, I'm a good person, therefore I'm assuming these, the person in charge is, they might not be as good as me, but they're not going to be that bad. And it's like, oh no, no,
Yeah.
no, no.
Yeah.
They're all bad.
Yeah.
They're all bad, and they're actively working against you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the
It's
problem.
a
It's like,
wild revelation, when you make that connection.
yeah, because you got all these good people that are just, why would you think that people would be evil? Because like none in my family are evil, like it's
Right.
it's that whole thing, and
It's
it
tough.
just
It's tough to imagine
catches,
it.
yeah, it catches you off guard to these narcissists and psychopaths that just levitate to what we've created in government structures and so on, to then be able to control us. Like the UN, if we didn't have the UN, we didn't need like cycles. It's just recently Gutierrez comes out and said like, what was it that we're at a breaking point? We got 7 years until we're all, dying of
Always.
whatever. Yeah, and what's funny here is like, okay, so everybody's been talking about warming, but I just had the coldest March in 4 years here. Like the March in 19, but this is an example. So in 2021, the average temperature here was 1.5 minus degrees. That was the average for March here. Well, this year it's minus 9.9.
Well, then that's climate change
Yeah, exactly.
because
Uh,
it changed.
that yeah, they had to change it. So like
See,
it's
they got rid of the global warming
yeah.
part because that made it, that was a bet to one side, right?
Well, if you, yeah.
They went with the more androgynous global war or climate change where you're sort of covered on both ends.
Well, they had
Brilliant.
to. They had
Yeah,
to,
they
right?
had to.
Or
They
else,
had to.
they called her a scam. Like it was guys like what's his name now that just passed away? Oh my goodness. He was a huge proponent. Let me see if I can find his book here quickly. Like his name was he was a professor actually from Winnipeg. Oh my goodness. Timothy Ball, his name was. He was actually climatologist, like a climate historian, and he was basically saying, "Oh yeah, we're getting colder. Like, we're
Yeah.
having an issue." And then of
Did he
course
get thrown out of academia or
well,
the media or wherever he
well,
was?
they hunted him down basically, and at the end, he actually had a lawsuit against Michael Mann, the guy from the UN that created the hockey stick. The one that was going to kill us all.
Yeah.
He had a lawsuit, and he won that lawsuit. But of course, he got Alzheimer's right after that, and he passed away 3 years later now. So, uh, but there's actually seeds of him some places. Now there is seeds of the other side. Like this is interesting. For example, what's this guy Lomberg? He's like an anti, like establishment climate change, like he's against the climate change, this bullshit kind of thing. But he's a young global leader. So,
Controlled opposition.
yeah, exactly. So, but again, it comes down to just trying to, I think, decentralize the world, and pushing for that, educating people about decentralizing by not being dependent. It's very easy, not being dependent. That's basically it. That's all you need to do. Not being dependent on government organizations, on the financial system, and just be, individual responsible for your own life, and take care of it. I think educating enough people on that and then having people around you in local communities or in your country, it's going to make it a lot easier to survive because they're going to really push hard on their agenda. There's no doubt about that. So I think, we're in a tunnel right now. There's a tiny little bit of light out there, but I think we're just entering it, and it's going to get a little darker, and then it gets lighter and lighter at the end of it. But
Where
yeah.
do you where do you see Bitcoin fitting in to all of this over the next 5 years?
Well, I think like you see both positive and negative sides of Bitcoin, but you got the controlled opposition is promoting Bitcoin as well, right? So I think what you're going to see is like Bitcoin is going to be this thing where it's going to be a solution, but then the problem is like they track everything already. Like they can track almost every address now, down to a T. So they know what's happening. They know who's moving money around a lot of times. There's government, agencies or private agencies that are dedicated to tracking every single move of a Bitcoin wallet, and make sure like they basically find out who owns it. Then they'd be like, oh, this is John's wallet. Like John is sending money to this wallet. Like, oh, who's this wallet? So they do a lot of research. They might even hack your computer or something, or find you on an exchange, like something. They'll find a tiny little crumb that leads it to you owning that Bitcoin account. So they get track and trade. Like it's fully open.
What do you
But
think of Monero then?
I like Monero. It's
Yeah.
better. It's more private and so on. But uh, I think that yeah, it's all digital. But again, like if you don't have other assets on top of that, like actual physical outside of the world, because there's the people that it's like, oh, we're just gonna like we live in a digital world. Come on, like why would we? But what if they flip a switch, guys? Like
Yeah. Oh, you've got to have
it's
yourself covered both ways.
yes,
I love
yeah,
gold and silver.
yeah. I love all of it, so I have all of it, and
Yeah,
it's
me
just
too.
like it's again like decentralization, but again they're going to push really hard. I think they're going to really try to come hard after things that people think that are. But again, I think it's that thing like oh we're going to have like more sides, more division, and so on, and just create chaos. It's look at like it's the same chaos going on in Brazil right now with Lula and Bolsonaro. Like they charged their capital riots. They had their moment there as well. Like it was like
It,
like
it's the
that.
same script.
Yeah, it's the same damn script. So it's like, oh, somebody's writing this nice script here. They really like got this perfectly set up every time. And I went out to the trucker convention here. They had a huge, like I was surprised. This never happened in Manitoba. I tried to do it, nobody cared, having a truth conference. But they had a truth conference. All the truckers from all over Canada, they met at a little camp here in Manitoba, run by a Mennonite guy. And what was interesting is I went and listened to a bunch of the speeches, but it was like every time it's like, yeah, we need to control the government.
Well, yeah, we could have saved you the trouble. We know that.
Yeah, so I have a few friends, like I probably have a dozen friends here now that understands what's going on and that, don't want those solutions. And I think that's the way to go is just finding like-minded people and just having, connections and all across everywhere around the world. And I think we've become like, Doug Casey. I don't know how much you follow Doug Casey and
He,
Matthew
he
Smith and
wrote
what they're.
the foreword to our book.
Also, yeah, so there you go. He's a
Yeah.
good friend. And like they actually have something called File now, which Doug Casey has predicted that we're just going to turn into files. Basically, since we still have technology and are online, we're going to have our own communities with people that we talk to, that we can communicate with and help each other out with doing business with and all this stuff. Like we're kind of like on a mission of trying to be self-sufficient, but with today's technology, unless they shut off the internet completely, which I think is going to be very hard to do with today's technologies. You're going to have to turn off the power and then we have nothing. But who knows what kind of psychotic things they'll do.
They'll be underground at that point.
Yeah, so we'll see. Like it'll be interesting to see, but I think again, it's just we just got to keep on grinding, on these ideas and getting it out to enough people that, you need individual freedom, you need, freedom of choice. Those two things should be paramount in any society. And when that happens, people be quite free and pretty happy. We're just scared because we got taught, over time that it's scary without the central entity that we could trust, to run things.
Right. These people are criminals.
Yeah.
You don't want to trust them with anything. I assure you. You can do
No,
a much better job yourself.
Yeah, the criminals running a gigantic Ponzi scheme. It's a cartel running a Ponzi scheme, which is the monetary system of today. And that's no better way of describing these scumbags is that's it.
You almost have to appreciate the audacity of the crime. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's so gigantic. That's what they talked about. They talked about a scam that is so gigantic that it is like hidden by your own incredulity. Like you can't believe that it's this big of a gigantic scam.
Go big or go home. It's their slogan.
Tell the big lie. I think there was
Yeah.
a guy from Austria that talked about that.
Yeah, just like that's what Hitler did. He just told a big enough lie enough times, and then people starting believing in it, right? So, no, it's again, I think our solution
Bringing
is
it back to the Fourth Reich. That's where we are. They're telling the big lie again.
Yeah.
The climate lie.
Yeah, I think we need to
green.
bring it back to the no Reich era. But
For sure.
until we're at that point, we'll keep on, fighting the good fight and have a lot of good friends around that we could talk about and give these ideas as a gift to people and future generations. I think is my mission, and I think it's your mission and others' mission. So we just got to keep on going and never give up against even in darker times, because if we stay positive and know that we're on a mission and we're good friends and we have allies everywhere, we just don't know it yet.
I agree. Macroaggressions podcast. Go check it out. It's free, but you get what you pay for. Sorry in advance. I get sort of offensive on there, but John's been on the show. I appreciate you having me on. You can follow me on Twitter at macroaggression. I appreciate you inviting me back on the show, and I'm going to have you on my new radio show on tntradio.live. That'll be on Saturday morning. So I'll have you come in and explain to the radio people this FSB situation and why we need to pay attention to it. So good to see you again.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure having you on, Charlie. I always enjoy our conversations, and hopefully we can have a conversation soon in person. Before
in Acapulco next year.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to try to make my way down there. It's not an excuse.
There were so many Canadians that were like, "This is my first time out of Canada in 3 years."
Yeah,
it was. There was like every other person was that. So you would be among good friends.
Yeah, and come join us there, everybody here that's listening. It's a fun time. I never had better times than down in Acapulco meeting like-minded people.
It is so much fun. It is like a great. You'll leave feeling totally like re-energized. That there's like, okay, I'm not crazy. There are people that see what I see and are doing cool things like outside of the system. It's really inspiring. I always have a good time. And I'm not just saying that because I wrote a book with Jeff, but because I really always have. I've now been 3 times, and it's every time gets a little bit better. So
yeah. And is there any
this year, but hopefully we'll see you next year.
Yeah, I know. Is there anything else before we go that you want to promote, Charlie?
That's it. My books are available at Amazon: Controlled Demolition with Berwick, The Octopus of Global Control, and Hypocrisy: Surviving in a World of Cultural Double Standards. So
I did not know about that last one. I got to pick that one up.
Oh yeah, that's I'll send you a copy.
Please do so. I look forward to reading it, Charlie. And it was a pleasure having you on. So we'll see you guys soon. And look forward to next the Economic Truth Report coming soon. Just one sec here.